What is up, guys? Welcome back again. Another week with Keeping It 100 with
Gissel
and Victor. And as always, we're here to keep it 100 with you guys. As always, we try to bring new guests every other week. This week is not any different from any other one. So we have our special guest, our friend, realtor, and LGBTQ youth advocate, Mr. Luis Neftali Rodriguez.
Hey guys, what's up? Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Cheers. We have to cheers.
Yeah, so I don't know what we.
Oh, what are you drinking there? Is that coffee?
No, I have some Sprite and vodka.
Oh.
I mean, it's a good mix. It's chill.
It's smooth. It just passes like Sprite.
Right. You know, so, I mean, it'll definitely give some fire to our conversation and relaxation. So.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
By the time you're done with this, it's gonna be like the tongue's gonna be a little heavier.
Right.
So I mean, I want to thank you so much, for taking time out of your day to, sit here, talk with us for a little bit, tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and what you, live for and strive to do on a daily basis. We want to end it with you because it's Pride Month, so we want to end Pride Month with a bang, and I think it's gonna be more of an educational here, or education being brought up.
Things, yeah.
Because honestly, like, I need it. Like, I need the education. Like, it's okay for you to say, you're ignorant in some subjects, and that's me. Like, that's me in this subject. I am, completely ignorant, and that's okay as long as I can acknowledge that. I feel like.
And I feel like it's good for us too, as parents of a teenager that's growing up and learning about all these new things, to know like how to respond to certain situations, how to talk, stuff like that.
Not only that, but I feel like this political climate that we have right now, it needs education, needs people to be educated. The conversation
has to happen.
Right, exactly. It's not something that we can hide, behind a curtain, or como dice Boricua, tapar el sol con la mano.
Yeah.
But it's something that, has to happen in order for a change to occur. So thank you so much.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. No, thank you guys. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to come and, share this moment with you guys and have a quick conversation just about, the LGBTQ plus community, where we are right now in this political climate and where we're going. So, yeah.
Well, for all the millions of people watching around the world right now,
we're manifesting millions.
Right.
We are.
Who is Luis Neftali Rodriguez?
Who is Luis Neftali Rodriguez? Well, I'm 36. I was born in PA.
Oh,
and I moved down
here in age.
Yeah. I'll be 37 this year. I was raised in a Christian family all my life. I was also in Christian leadership. It wasn't till fast forward through my high school years that, I salí del armario, como se dice. I came out the closet at the age of 24. So there's a whole journey of my life prior to me coming out. And, as you say, sometimes where, we may not know. I came out and I didn't know where to even start. So, being sheltered all my life in a Christian family, that was my challenge, was to find my place in this new community that I knew nothing about. And I knew that internally I was feeling something strong, but that I really didn't know where my place was. So, I come from that type of household. I have two sisters and my parents, and, it wasn't easy.
Are you the youngest or the oldest?
I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So I'm the oldest and I'm the only male.
Oh, wow.
Family. So, for Spanish families, that's not the easiest thing sometimes to take, not just the oldest, but the male in the family, and start this new venture and journey that I was in. So I think one of the hardest things was that. But, we've come a long way in the last 12 years.
Yeah.
So, I'm really grateful for my family, and I'm grateful for their love and support, and they really have shown me unconditional love. So, I'm here not only because of the grace of God, but also because of them.
So that's awesome.
Well, that's awesome. I like that. I appreciate you sharing that. And Louis, this is something that we have to ask because it's like a copyright question that we have to ask all of our guests. Like, are you currently single, married, in a relationship, situationship? What's going on with your life?
Oh, my love life. I think the love letter that I'm writing right now is mine. I was in a relationship previously for a couple years, and there was a lot of mistakes that I perhaps made in that time frame. You know, when you're still learning and you're still growing and still trying to figure things out, you make mistakes.
Yeah.
So, I feel like in this chapter of my life, I am single. I am writing a love letter to myself.
Oh, I like that.
And trying to just fall in love with myself every single day, and hopefully if another spirit comes along who may want to figure something out, then maybe that'll be it. But at the current moment, I'm writing this letter to myself and I'm living for it. So
I love that. I feel like a lot of women and men should take your advice, because sometimes you need to give yourself that time to like figure yourself out, love yourself before you can like
sometimes you can
go
lose
to
yourself.
to the next thing.
Yeah, because sometimes you can lose yourself in a relationship, especially if it's a toxic one or not a good one. So you kind of want to have that time to kind of go back to who you were and kind of find out exactly, like you said, fall in love with yourself again, find out exactly what you like, what you want to do, what you don't want to do. Like, I think that's the most important part. It's finding out what you don't like versus what you like, because anybody can be likable or anybody can have some likable attributes to themselves, but what is it that what you don't like? What is it you can't
what's a deal breaker?
A deal breaker, or what's what you can't support? Like what are those things that you can't just, it might be small for other people, but for you it's like
it's a big deal.
Yeah, like I can't do that. Those are the things that you need to find out. Most important.
That's true.
So
June is Pride Month. I mean,
it is. Happy Pride, everyone.
So I know there's a lot of people that don't understand, especially Christians, as you may already know, or just
any religion,
any religion,
or faith in general,
or just people in general. I would say that. For everybody that doesn't know, what is Pride Month? What is Pride, and why is it celebrated, and why is it so important to you?
Well, there's so many components to that question to answer it. I think for me, Pride is number one, remembering those that came before us. This fight didn't start with us. It started with a whole nother generation that sometimes in the midst of times gets lost. And, I have been in leadership positions in places where I have spoken with the senior citizens of this community, and they at times feel like they're forgotten. So Pride for me is to remember them, to remember the road that they established, to continue the fight, and to celebrate life. For me, Pride, el orgullo de ser LGBTQ, plus is, all my life I took pride in loving God and in serving God. That there was a time in my life where there was a gray area and I didn't really know, I guess, how to really move forward with my LGBTQ life and also serving God at the same time. I struggled trying to find that relationship. I got to a place where I had to put aside faith and Christianity as a whole to be able to establish a relationship with God alone. My biggest struggle was because I was raised as a Christian Pentecostal, all my life evangelical. I every single time I went to pray, I didn't feel like I was worthy enough, and I had already struggled with that all my life. So I got to a place where I was on a spiritual journey, which I still am. Where I had to separate the way I was raised and just by institution and religion, and really, really determine what my relationship with God was. I don't really, I don't connect myself with a denomination or even a faith by like Christian or anything like that in this time in my life. But I do consider myself a spiritual being. And it's in that connection that I have with God that I'm able to move forward, that I'm able to find answers, that I'm able to, really just pursue what I'm looking for, and it's really just, like I said in the beginning, falling in love with yourself is the most important thing. If you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anybody else? That's a RuPaul saying for those that haven't seen it. But,
Yeah,
it's the truth. We're empty. If we're empty souls, what are we giving to another soul?
That's why I wanted to clarify in the beginning that it wasn't religion. Like, it's not religion what doesn't understand, because you're getting to understand that within the religion there's people, and the people
Correct.
are the ones that kind of make the wrong decisions. We're still humans at the end of the day, so they either try to stay ignorant or they don't have an open mind and they don't want to learn. But it's like, we cannot just generalize like that in religion, because at the end of the day, like, if people have a spirit or higher being that they want to pray to, that's perfectly fine. That's your right, and that's your belief. But when it comes to civil like things, like for example, like LGBTQ plus rights and stuff like that, and that's a whole different ballgame, because I feel like the state shouldn't try to mess with any type of religious belief and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? So that was my 2 cents, I guess.
I think when it comes to like religious belief, one of the hardest things that we're fighting with is the separation between church and state.
Which is hard right now.
Which is super hard. We're having rulings coming out from the Supreme Court that are being based on religious beliefs.
Yeah.
And you can't establish law with one religion, with one religious belief in place. Right. We live in a country that is a melting pot of culture, a melting pot of religion, a melting pot of orientation, and who you love and how you love. That to try to make it all one, we're never gonna agree.
Yeah, and everybody
those type of differences.
Yeah, and everybody has their own perception, and within their own
religion.
Yeah. They think different than the next Christian. Well, the next Christian thinks different. Like, it's
the reason why church and state was meant to be separate is because you need to understand that the church, they look out for their congregates. They look out for their well-being, for what they believe, and it's that group of people only. But there's over 3,000 different religions that is looking for their own people. So the government's job is to look for everybody. They're looking out for everybody, for Pentecostal, Catholics, Hinduism. What is the other one?
Islam.
There's a bunch. It looks out for agnostics, ateo, like everything. They look out for everybody's well-being. So I feel like some people have the wrong understanding that, yes, like it's okay for you to be conservative, but you cannot impose those religious beliefs into everybody in a society, because it just doesn't work that way.
I heard a news broadcaster that said something really, really important. She's like, I believe in religious liberty. I just don't believe for your religion to impose in my life.
Right.
And I think that it's so clear when you say it that way. Like, I believe, my family, most of my family members, direct family members, are Christians, evangelicals, Protestant, Pentecostals, maybe Catholics, in some places, and they all have their own religious belief. And I respect that. I come from there. But for me, I feel like at some point in time in my life, I was caught right in the middle between, my faith and now my community. And hearing stories, having friends, having even people that I don't know come up to me, because at times I wear a hat of a counselor, and really just try to talk about, how do we break the ceiling between church and our community? Our community has been hurt so much by religion. By the Christian church. There's so many things that have been done in the last decades, that it's really hard to heal from something that you still see the church not wanting to heal from, and so, it's going to take the church to stand forward to heal that relationship. And so, I've been in the middle and I've seen both sides, and so, I think it's super important.
Yeah, no. And I guess like we can go in and talk the whole hour or the whole show about just this subject, because I have a lot to say, and two, I'm sure Lewis has a lot to say too.
I have a lot to say.
Right. It's like,
as a woman.
Exactly. Like everybody has a lot to say. So I think that should be a whole different episode in itself. And I don't know, who knows? It might be like a panel type of thing. So we can have, different opinions and different perspectives. That might be interesting. That might be something
do that at the office.
Very cool.
Yeah. In the office. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna go. But obviously I'm curious. I like to kind of do some research and know stuff. So and then I was looking at the initials, LGBTQ plus. So I was like, what does the plus mean? And I come to find out that the plus is just more initials, which I'm gonna ask you if you know them, because it's.
I'm gonna read it out.
Yeah,
it's LGBTQIP2SAA. Do you know what it stands for?
All right, I could probably give you like more than half of those. So lesbian, lesbian. I'll do more than half of them.
Okay.
Lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, questioning, intersectionality, asexuality, pansexuality, sapiosexuality, two-spirited.
Oh, you did good.
I think I got most of them.
There's just missing 1A,
right?
1A.
Yeah. 1A. At the current moment, it's not coming to me.
Okay, it's fine.
I almost got them.
Said queer, questioning, intersex.
Yep, intersexuality,
pansexual.
asexuality, sapio, pansexual, right? And two-spirited. So the two-spirited would be from the Native community, the Native American community.
Oh.
Interesting.
When you see 2S, it's the two-spirited.
Interesting.
Nice.
So I feel dumb asking this question.
No,
what is it that they like? Like, what is their preference? I guess is a better question. I guess.
Yeah, that's a better.
I don't think that there's, obviously the first letters as lesbian, gay, bi, and trans, they explain themselves. Queer, queer is a word that back in the day, if you talk to anybody, in the seniors, and kind of like in the senior, and even perhaps at sometimes some millennials may feel a certain type of way with the word queer. And it was because back in the day, it was used as a derogatory word towards the community. And what the community did was that it took possession of that word back. And they said, no, queer is who we are. Queer is an umbrella, of a term of umbrella for our community where everybody fits right under. If there was a storm outside and I had one umbrella and there were many communities, they would all come under one. And that's what queer stands for. So it's kind of like, just a blanket. A blanket where everyone is welcome to, and you may not know how you identify. So I say it many times that I'm a queer being.
I was about to ask you, which one do you identify with?
So I obviously, when I first came out, I was gay. That was what I understood. Then about 4 or 5 years ago, I started going to this camp as a counselor, where many of the students and the campers are LGBTQ plus high school students who would come in already at that age. You're talking about 14, 15, 16, already kind of knowing who they are. And you're like, holy crap, at 14, 15, 16, I didn't even know where to start. At that time, I was still in church, still involved in the youth in my church. And I was a leader at that time. So I really didn't understand how they have empowered themselves so much within one another to really define their sexuality.
I think it has to do a lot with the phones now too, with all the information that you have now available and videos.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
It's so, I think it's not the problem. I don't think the problem is the information that's out there. It's the accessibility, that it's so easy for somebody to just, scroll on TikTok or on YouTube. Now they have the shorts. Like you could be scrolling around and you just fall into a death trap or something like that, or a rabbit hole is what they call it.
Yeah.
So, but that's interesting, because like I'm trying to put myself at 14, and I knew I like girls and whatnot, but it's like, I guess I didn't know what I guess like I knew what a gay person was when I was young, but I didn't know what like a lesbian was, or bisexual, all that, until like I was like maybe 19, 20 years old. Like,
Yeah.
that's how ignorant I was, I guess.
I mean, I think I'm gonna, just for lack of a better word, instead of it being ignorant, I think it's being naive. And the reason why I say that is because, especially with the Spanish community, we're so I mean, the Puerto Rican community, and we can talk about any of the Caribbean community, Dominican, even Jamaican, if you want to go into other Caribbean places, where they perhaps did not know how to even move forward.
Right.
Their kids were experiencing things that they didn't even either they experienced it perhaps in a bad way, which is more of like some PTSD that they're dealing with as parents, because it wasn't until my adulthood that I found out that I had family members in the older generation that also went through certain things that they just didn't know how to, what to do about it. They didn't talk to their parents about it because they weren't open. They were afraid of what the response was going to be from their parents or older generations. And so, you find it now where we're now, moving. I find it to be a huge rock up a mountain. And so it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us to start the conversation, just like we're doing right now at the dinner table, talking to our children, talking to even our fellow family members, because people in our age, I mean, it's every day, and maybe not every day, but every so often that I have a family member come and tell me, hey, my child just told me this, and they're freaked out. They are like, what am I doing? How do I connect? What am I saying to them? I love my child so much that I don't want to make this worse. Right. And, my answer to them is listen to them. Give them a space to talk. And when they're ready, they'll talk to you.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the difference? Because a lot of people don't know the difference between sexual orientation and gender identity.
Okay. So I'm gonna try to explain this. I've explained it once, it's been a little bit, but I'm gonna explain it.
When she says people, she means me.
That's fine. So there is gender identity, gender orientation, and gender expression. 3 things. It's like the egg. There's the white, there's the yellow, and there's the shell. Okay. So the way I explain it is the shell is how you appear, how you feel. Like gender expression is how you feel to express yourself from your outside out, your external out to others. Then there's gender orientation, which gender orientation is more who you lie with and who you feel, who do you feel as a person internally. So there's an external part of that, there's an internal part of that, and then there's a connection. So so when I'm speaking, like if I'm in a relationship, I may externally be, in my gender expression, I may be at times masculine and feminine. I like to wear earrings. So at times, I express myself that way, and for others, sometimes it's easy to accept and some others may not. But I think that I break a barrier when it comes into that. And I also give an opportunity for a conversation. And so that's how, when I express myself, my outward expression is in that, is trying to, break the norm, when people see me. My gender orientation is, it's who I am. It's who I feel internally who I am. It could be gay, lesbian, bi, and go down the, the list of our community. You can, apply yourself to one of those parts of the community. And then, when you're talking about who I'm with, that's a completely different connection. And so that's why you find 3 different stages. It's who you are on the outside, how you, who you are on the inside, and how you connect. Just because, especially when I say queer, which can be a big umbrella, if I say, hey, I'm gender queer, I may connect with a more feminine or more masculine being, or probably someone who doesn't even identify with either one, where they can be non-binary and say, you know what, I don't feel like I need to connect in a masculine, feminine way. This is just who I am. So, at times, I've definitely have had, opportunities with people that have felt that they're non-binary and that's who they are. And number one, I have to respect that as a queer person.
So when you say non-binary, I'm so sorry to interrupt you because there's a lot of people that don't understand binary and non-binary. Can you explain a little bit about that?
So binary are the two sex that our culture has brought forth, which is male and female. Non-binary are those that may feel like they live, just for lack of words or understanding, they live in the middle of those two, or they don't live in the middle of them at all. Where they just feel like I don't want to be, that's if you see, for example, if you see the shirt, which is an organization in Orlando called Q-Latinx. They're a queer Latin community who serves Central Florida. And the reason why they put the X on Q-Latinx is for those that really don't feel like they need to connect to a certain sex. Usually you say Latina or Latino for male or female, where Latinx is somebody who, so when we say Latinx, we're talking about the community completely. And also Latinx can be somebody who feels that they're non-binary. So, like, for example, I used to live in Maine, and now in Maine, in your license, instead of having sex F for female or M for male, they have X. And X are non-binary, or those that just may not connect to a female or male, label for them.
Like, from what I understanding, it's more like about connection. Like, you guys stand for to be recognized and, like, be part of the society like you are, like you deserve to be. You have a right. So that's a good, like, you explain it really well. Like, you break it down Barney style, like I like to say.
That's what we got to do. Barney style is the only way.
Break it down. A, B, C. Give me the letters. Like, I want to see them. But how do you see more or less the acceptance of the LGBTQ plus community in our society?
Currently,
like right now.
If I were to give it a grade, I would give it a D. And I'm going to tell you why I would give it a D. I won't say that we're failing, even though the Supreme Court is making many changes and could be making changes in the near future, perhaps towards the LGBTQ community, which would put us in a different direction. Let's just say that I think the community as a whole needs to be determined to put us on the same platform. For so many years, we have been what I would call a backstage community. And so the only time we're seen is either in Pride Month, or if we're making ourselves seen in the community, let it be a festival or some type of activity with the community, that's when we're seen. For me, Pride is 365 days a year. Just because we celebrate it in the month of June, it doesn't mean that we cannot be recognized for the rest of the year, forever.
That's true.
I think our biggest fight is that we as part of the human race, this is not about, I think that's where we go wrong. Instead of calling us the human race as a whole, as everyone as a melting pot, we are so focused on you're this community and you're this community. So the connection is very gray. So, one of the things being raised as a Christian, I think for me, one of my greatest objectives in life is to find that, the word of God, and I'll refer to this, says that we should be standing in the gap for others, which is what Christ did for us. If you kind of look at the story, he stood in the gap for humanity to be able to bring an opportunity to be saved. And so if we look at it that way, what the queer community is looking for is for the Christian church to stand in the gap. And it isn't until the Christian church understands that, because that's what we're called to do, to stand in the gap for our brothers and our sisters, to love one another just like you would love yourself, to love God above all things. Yeah. You know what I mean? Until we understand that as a whole, we're going to continue to have this fight between church and state, between different communities and state and church as well. Because when we talk about church, we're not talking about every religion. We're talking about Christianity. We're talking about Catholicism. We're talking about, what the Anglos brought when they came to this land. So,
what is it? Oh, the evangelicals are a little crazy too.
Really?
Yeah, no, right.
No, they are.
I don't know.
And Those are the ones that do protests in front of Planned Parenthood and all that stuff.
Oh,
I mean, it depends. It depends where you come from. Every church has
Right.
a different type of doctrine. So, there are evangelicals that will not do that, but it all depends where you come
Right.
from and
But there's
what
some,
your pastor.
there's extremists. There's always,
Yeah, right,
every religion has extremists.
yeah.
Muslims have extremists. Everybody has extremists.
Yeah.
Like Christians have extremists. The ones that, this is
Yeah.
the only book that I'm reading, the Bible, and I got my gun right here, my Second Amendment.
right,
Like those
right.
are extremists. Like,
Yeah.
there's like you said, I feel like the connection is missed because there's so many labels. There's, you're American, you're Latino, you're white, you're black, you're brown, you're gay, you're straight. It's like there's so many tags and labels that, like you said, the connection is like very vague. It's like very non-existent. Like, yes, we know that, we know that there's people from other places and other races, but do we really know how to connect with them in a certain way, in a human level? Like,
I
Yeah.
mean, there's beauty in that.
Yeah.
When we talk about culture and we talk about people from around the world, and you see people bring their culture to the table, there's beauty in that.
oh yeah,
I love myself. Any other community that comes in and says, "Hey, let me be present." Just to even explain a little bit more deeper into the issue, even in the community and even in the gay community, you find those of gay people of color and gay white Anglo. And
Really?
so what happens is that even in our own community, we're fighting one another
wow,
to try to find space on the platform. So it's not just heteronormative ways and heteronormative people. It's also in our own homosexual communities, where we're in our gay community, queer communities, that we're finding the same problem at times. Where we're not
problems
trying,
like racism and stuff like that.
yeah, well, racism within our own community.
that's true.
If you think about the riots and Stonewall riots that happened, it was the people of color that were leading those riots against the police. And so now when you look at, gay pride or pride, you see a lot of commercialization. You see a lot of, Anglo up front, where people of color also have to share that platform and that stage. And so, where you find it anywhere. Just like you can find it within the Christian community, you can find it within the LGBTQ plus community, and that's just being real,
Wow.
and just trying to, breaking down color, man, from white to black and everything in the middle, and seeing those for who they really are.
Right.
I think what connects us all as a community, as a world, as a human race is love.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
until we understand that love is the most powerful and impacting thing that we can actually put forth, we see change here and there, but is it really going to last? Right. We talk about, our government and the political climate that we're in, things that are changing from 50 years ago that are now changing now. That's a whole nother conversation talking about women's rights and going down that avenue.
Right.
But I say this, as a queer person, my rights and women's rights are on the same platform. We should be not just knocking one another, because that's what's happening at times. We should be joining on the same platform and fighting together.
Right.
Because all our rights are, it's our right to fight for that. So
yeah, definitely. So besides being an awesome realtor, you are an LGBTQ plus counselor and advocate. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like what's a day in the life?
Yeah.
Oh wow. So for many years, I have been, I got into the gay community in 2009, which is when I came out. And I found myself in a really dark place. Being a youth pastor, a youth leader for many years prior to that, and always working with youth, I felt lost because I was no longer connected to the church and I was no longer experiencing that. And so I needed to find an outlet. I needed to find a way to be able to just put myself back into play. And so I started doing nights, like club nights, I moved up north, and the community up north welcomed me and gave me a place to give them a place of home, a place of celebration, a place to dance all night in, a place to be able to connect with other queers. And then I got into the Pride organization. So organizing Pride, I was co-chair for an organization in Maine. And so, doing the Pride parade, I was able to do a parade as well and be the coordinator, and being able to bring the community from there's just so many moving pieces and wheels in our community. So it was just beautiful to see the rainbow really come to life. And when it comes to youth advocacy, I'm all about our rights, and I'm all about making our voices heard, and also sometimes thinking out of the box and how we make our voices heard. One of the things that I had the privilege and the pleasure of being involved in 4 years ago, actually in 2018, I was invited to a queer camp. It's called Pride Camp, and it is up north in New England, in Maine. And it's an LGBTQ plus high school camp. And to be honest with you, the first year I was invited by a fellow colleague on the board of Pride. And my knees shook the moment I got there. I was having this spiritual warfare within me. I knew that this experience was going to expose many things in my life, and that I had to be vulnerable with these kids when I wasn't ready to be vulnerable, to be honest. And, in my mind, that's where I was. To the moment I saw, it's called Pilgrim Lodge, to the moment I saw the sign of the camp, I was willing to turn around.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I was willing to turn around.
What was the sign?
No, well, it was their physical sign of camp.
Okay.
All their physical sign.
Okay.
I was about to make a U-turn.
The sign was nice, and you were like, okay, it's welcoming.
No, I was looking for a sign to turn around and I was about to go around and just turn out. But we had about 70 kids that year. And there were probably out of all the children, there were probably 7 students that were of color. Everybody else was white. Going from New England, that's kind of like how it is. If you're a name that's 95% Anglo, white, and so the other 5% is divided within all the rest of the communities. Wow. And so, myself and another colleague were the only 2 counselors of color. And so they did a panel that changed my life. They told myself and my other colleague counselor, hey, we would like for you to take the 7 people of color out of this group and have a conversation with them. And when we're ready, we're going to ask you to come back and chat. And so we really didn't understand what that meant. But what it was, we went to the cafeteria, all of us sat down. And even within the community of color, there were children that were raised by white families who were of color, who did not understand the separation of white and color, who felt safer in white spaces, yet were people of color who did not really understand their own culture. When you want to go deeper into the gay community, there's so much that goes on.
They were raised in the suburbs, is what you're saying.
Right. Or they were adopted into white families, even though they are kids of color.
That's wild. That's for people to understand that all this racism and that all this, I don't know, how to deal with other races and whatnot. That's learned. That is something that is taught, as you grow. And it depends on who's raising you, that, it might change your perspective in life.
Yeah. Everything you learn at first at home. So it's whatever you're taught at home.
That's crazy. But I wouldn't expect that though. I wouldn't, now, obviously I believe what you're saying, but it's I would have never believed to hear that would happen, Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it happens. It's the world is crazy.
It's a lot, and what happened was that child that I was sharing, the camper that I was telling you guys or sharing about, that did not really connect with her community of color. They had a moment they had a moment where they were like, I feel now lost because you guys took me away from what I know.
Oh.
And when it came to her moment of speaking, or their moment of speaking, excuse me, their moment of speaking, that's what they said, and they started crying. They had this, it was I can't even get the word right now, but it was such a deep cry within her soul.
Emotional cry, like
it was an emotional cry. And all the kids so we were all standing in the front on rocking chairs in front of like 60 other white kids. And so that pressure alone to me, for myself, when I didn't even want to be there, was a lot, you know? And the mama papa bear in me was like, let's surround her. And the rest of the 6 children campers that were there surrounded her and started crying with her. And it wasn't until after that experience where I was just like, this is my place. This is where I need to be. I broke. I became vulnerable for them. I shared my stories. I shared Pulse because they never understood more. You know, they saw Pulse from a distance, from 1,200 miles away. You know, from having somebody within their camp who actually understood, who lost friends at Pulse, you know, and what that impact was for me. And honestly, till today, I still have sometimes issues going into spaces.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, because it was here at home, you know what I mean? And, you know, I remember that day calling my friends and calling my cousins and those that I knew in the community closest to me, hey, where you at? You know, it was a lot. It was a lot going on from friends.
That was scary.
No, I was literally like 10 minutes away, 15 minutes away from our house.
Yeah, and we lost people we used to work at the same place when we used to work corporate. So
Paul Henry.
Yeah, we
lost Paul Henry there.
One person there.
Like, he was one of the best sales reps that we had, and on the floor, he was a ball of charisma. He was
dressed up always.
He was always spiffy, dressed up. You knew that he was in the room when he showed up, like when he walked in. Like, he was that presence, that energy, and what I always remembered about him, and I will never forget. It was that whenever I used to say good morning and pass around, because I think it was a supervisor and manager at that point, he will always say, "Let me hold something. Let me get a credit card. Let me hold something. Like, let me hold something, boy. Like, you all dressed up here with the crocodile shoes and shit. Like, let me hold something." But like, yeah, we lost him that day, and that was, it's been how long now? How many years?
6 years.
Wow.
Man,
passed by quick.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast time goes.
Yeah. But I guess the next question that I have is like, and again, I'm sorry, I'm coming in from a ignorant standpoint.
Well, these questions, this is a list of frequently asked questions from people who want to learn more about the community, basically, and what to do when you're in certain situations, like your advice on certain things.
Right. So what kind of things might a person who is LGBTQ plus go through when they're coming out?
What kinds of things do they go through?
Yeah, like
when they're about to come out.
Wow. I think it all depends. It all depends who they sit at the table with. And the reason why I say that is because it starts at home. It starts at home. So, you know, for me, I wasn't comfortable in sharing anything with my family, to be honest. And because I had already established kind of like what they saw for me, what their dreams and their ambitions were for me, you know, I was already walking in that at the age of 23, 24. And so, you know, the Bible says, you know, to honor your mother and father. And one of my biggest challenges was that I felt that because I was queer and because I was in that space, I'm ready to just, you know, come out and just tell the whole world. My biggest fear was to dishonor my parents, you know? Yeah. And so, you know, it's embedded in you that it's part of your, at times I can say it's part of your DNA, you know, because when you're born and raised in the Christian faith, they're hammering it on you from day one.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And so, it was hard. One of my biggest things, my conversation with my dad perhaps went better than what I expected, but my conversation with my mom broke her. Where it took her a couple weeks to even direct a word to me again, because she didn't know how to talk to me. She didn't know how to address me when I'm like, Mom, your child is still standing in front of you.
Was it because she probably thought that she lost her only son? You know what I'm saying? Because I was about to ask you, like, did your dad receive it like worse than your mom? Because only son, being the oldest, Christian family, Puerto Rican, pa joder. O sea, like there's a lot of variables there that were not in your favor. So I was gonna ask, like, who had like the worst impact or like the worst reaction, I guess.
So at that time, I moved to New Jersey. I love to backpack. I've lived probably like in 5 different states, trying to I've met amazing people and have amazing opportunities while I've done those things. But at that specific time, I had turned 24. It was November 6th. I called my mom and I told my mom, she was the first person for me to talk to. I told my mom, hey, Mom, I need to talk to you. I need to share something with you. She had a house full of church members who had come to visit her. And we probably had about maybe a 30-minute conversation, maybe a little longer than that, but it broke her, like I had shared with you before. And my father then tells me the story that she never came out of her room. She never came out of her room. She couldn't confront her guests. And she was crying in her own, just processing everything I had told her. And it wasn't until probably a couple days later, probably about 2 days later, because she said, my mom and dad have always had a relationship where they have always told one another, supported one another when it came to the kids. If I went to dad and said, Dad, I want something, and he said no, my mom would then say, what did your dad say? They were in sync that way. And so I thought that by telling my mom first, she would then tell my dad. And she specifically said, Neftali, because that's my legal first name, Neftali, I am not going to share this with your dad. This is on you. And, I didn't even know what the heck to do or what to say.
I would have been scared.
Like, holy shit. Like, wow.
Like, I was like, I don't know. I expected her to say, I didn't expect her to say it, but I just thought that she would have done that. She would have shared it with him.
Yeah.
So long story short, because I see our timing, the next day I called him. He said, I'm going to church. Can you give me today and can we talk tomorrow? And I said, okay, Pa. All right. I love you. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I called my dad the next day and I said, Dad, he's like, I know what's going on. Your mother's been processing it for the last day or so. And he's like, thank you for allowing me to go to church yesterday. And I'm going to tell you this. I love you more today than I've ever loved you in my life.
No.
And that was my dad's response.
Oh my God. I love your dad.
Yeah, he's an amazing soul. And it took my mom some time to just figure out. My mom is both my mom and dad are spiritual beings and spiritual Christians, but my mom has always held us first. My mom has been the leader when it comes to in the household, in the church, and she's always instructed. She was a children's director. So, her kids, me and my sisters and I were always with her. And so I understood why it impacted her more because, there were promises. There were so many things that were bestowed upon my life that she already saw either to flourish or that were happening. And so, when I say I broke my mom in the spirit, I did. And it took us a couple years to find our place again.
Right.
And I'm trying to say it in the most
nicest way.
Yeah.
I mean, I got that. There's no easier word to use. I mean, you guys found each other again, basically.
Yeah, no, and I think it took us a while because I even had challenges with my own siblings, and trying to find my place with them again. I would move away from home just to create that I miss you kind of feeling, because I felt while I was home I wasn't seen.
Right.
And everybody has a different story, and I was blessed enough to have a parent who, my father was probably like you, Victor. He didn't understand any of it. The only thing he understood was that he had a God who was greater than everything else, and that love was everything he needed to
That's
bestow.
all you need to know.
Right.
And so, you know, everybody has a different story. I mean, I've had stories with friends of mine and colleagues and those that I may not even know that just have talked to me where they're like, my story in the church was completely different. I was called out. I was shamed in front of the whole congregation.
Oh my God.
They can go down a list where I'm just
we had a coworker who I believe went through. I could be wrong. I don't want to say his name because he's following us.
What it was some type of camp?
No, it was like a conversion, like therapy conversion
camp.
Camp.
That's
like
horrible.
he was from Indiana. You know how Indiana is very, religious,
very conservative.
Yeah, very conservative. So I guess he had a marriage. He had his marriage. He had kids, and then he decided that
it wasn't for
him. It wasn't how he really felt. And he came out, and I guess in the beginning it was hard for him to accept it. First off, that's why he kind of tried to go to all these like conversion camps and conversion therapy and all that. But then obviously he realized that it didn't, and now he lives, a happy life. He's married, with the love of his life, and he's living it up. Married? Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, I don't know if they're married, but they're living together.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
I don't know.
In the queer community, that's a day can be a year, where a year can be a decade. So,
oh my God.
So, married or not, they're together. So that's a celebration.
Yeah. So when was the moment that you came out when you were 24? But when was the moment that you knew?
Oh, I was a kid.
How old?
I was wow. Wow, man. I was probably about 6 years old.
Wow, from 7 to 24. I'm just trying to see the time. Like that's a long time.
No, it was years, and so many things in between. It was just a consistent battle. Like I said, honoring my family and my parents, and honoring what they had shown me all my life was my first priority.
Yeah.
I was last. I was last when it came to religion and family, and it wasn't until I was engaged to be married. let's shout out that I was engaged to be married to a female, to go into full-time ministry at the age of 23. Oh. And it was at that time where I decided that I did not want to be a statistic of Christian evangelical men that would, for religious or faith or family sakes, would go into marry a woman, have children, and then break them later.
No, I'm glad you did that, because I know some people that have gotten married.
Yeah, I do too. And that's usually what I tell them.
Hard on both ends, I feel.
I think it's harder on the woman.
It has to be hard on both of them.
I don't know, but like for you to get married to the love of your life and then they tell you something different, like I'd rather not go through that.
Yeah, but the question, I feel like the question would be like how was he feeling? Trying to like get over this fact, like, oh, like I love this woman, but I don't like what she had. Like I don't know, like it has to be hard on both of them. Like it has.
I can say that I loved her. I just wasn't in love with her. And as much as I wanted my own freedom to love, I felt like I was in my own captivity. I think one of my biggest things when it came to the youth that, I would lead was that I didn't want to lead them into another captivity. This whole time in my life, I was also going through something, and so, being a leader to other youth or to other adults, I found my own self in gray areas where I didn't even know what to say, because I was probably experiencing it at the same time they were. Right. The only difference was that I was, put on a platform at an early age to be a leader. And that's why my leadership and my queer experience in church happened at the same time. So, my first, not to say much, but my first boyfriend was in church. So,
Oh.
it was another youth that was also experiencing some things just as I was. And we found refuge in one another. So I'm not going to say that it was a full-blown relationship, but it
Yeah.
was definitely an accountability. Two people
Mm.
being held accountable to one another and finding a safe space where we could talk to one another.
Right.
And
That's
at that time, I was 15 and 16 years old. So, I was in high school. I was a leader in high school. And so, I played football. I sang in chorus, but I was also the Christian leader who did the flagpole and prayed in the morning.
Mm.
So, as you see, I was always looking for something to identify with or a group of people to identify with
Yeah.
because I was always struggling with my internal battle.
Right.
So
So
yeah,
I'm assuming, and I was gonna ask you, like, was it hard for you to, or difficult for you to come out? But from listening to your story, yes, like it was difficult, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah, no, it was. I mean, I took it upon myself to tell my immediate family because in Spanish families, we talk a lot of gossip about each other.
Oh yeah,
So cuando la tía lo sabe, también sabe el tío
todo
y
el
los
mundo lo
primos.
sabe.
Todo el mundo lo sabe. Right, everybody knows it. So I didn't want to be, because I was always in the light as a leader, I didn't want to let this, I wanted to get in front of this situation and I didn't want to let it to control me. So I went to my uncles, my aunts, all my first cousins, either by phone or in person. And I was like, this is the decision that I'm making. I am only asking you to love me. I'm not asking you to understand it or respect it in the sense that you need to understand everything from A to Z.
Right.
Yeah.
Only thing I'm asking is for your love back. And, I think because I put that first foot forward, my uncles and my aunts said, you know what? We may not agree with this, but you're the first person I've ever seen do this. You're the
That's
first,
wonderful.
you took it within yourself to share the decisions you were making. And from there on, in the last 12 years of my life, I have proven to them that a queer spiritual person can exist, that queer people can have a relationship with God, that queer people can stand also in the gap for other queer people. We can also stand in the gap for our families that may not understand. Sometimes they take a little bit longer to get into the wagon and go with us to travel this journey that we're in. Some may never get on the boat or may never get on the bus. But you know what? It is up to you. It is up to us as the queer community to hold strong where we're at, to not give not even an inch of space backwards, and to talk about this at the dinner table.
Yeah.
Talk about it with our kids. Talk about it with the older generations who still don't understand at times things.
Right.
My grandmother, I see her all the time. She's 83 years old, going to 84 years old. And there's moments where I'm pretty sure she has so many questions when she sees me. And she'll be like,
I doesn't even know how to start asking them.
Yeah, she probably doesn't. I mean, she's very quick. She's very quick at her tongue, at this time and age in her life. My grandfather passed away and left her all his strength. So she's quick. She's quick at her tongue to say what's on her mind. But, I still feel that she has that space of respect and love for me. And, I'm grateful that I'm able to be there for her, and to show her a different light, and to show her that we can exist and we can be here for one another. I've had opportunities within my family to be up in the front and to be a pillar. This last year, probably last year and a half, I had probably 4 different family members pass away, one during COVID and 3 others for other reasons. And my uncle and my aunt came up to me and said, if you didn't know, let me tell you now that you are a pillar in our family.
Oh, that's awesome.
It felt like,
Wow.
okay, all right.
Okay, I need my painting in the wall now. It's like, please.
Right. I arrived and they're seeing me for who I am. Love for me is everything. Believe me, I had, for those that are in the queer community, for those that have family that are in the queer community, we go through some dark times in our life. Some dark times. And I think as allies, which is the biggest thing where I can talk about to kind of conclude this, as allies, those that are not, part of the community, your biggest thing, and you know what? That second A could be talking about allyship.
Maybe,
And
yeah, I
it's
think so.
those that are not within the community in the sense of, how they express or their orientation, but at the same time, those that love us, put love first, stand with them, don't talk for them, stand with them, and then support them.
Yeah, and I was about to get into that right now for people who are not part of the LGBTQ plus community but want to show support. I have a couple questions. I know we're running late. Do you have a couple more
I'm
minutes?
good.
Okay, good. So what should I do if I think someone that's close to me is LGBTQ plus, but they haven't told me?
Just be ready. Do what you're doing right now.
Be
Have
quiet.
conversations.
Be quiet and not say anything.
Yeah, be quiet. Be
What do you want
quiet.
to do? Call them out.
No,
Zaga!
no, not me. For people who are watching that
No.
want
But-
that feel
I
that
got
way.
you. I got you now.
But no, you need to. What I mean is to be ready is to educate yourself, which was what do you guys do? This conversation is about educating yourself.
Yeah.
About understanding things that maybe you don't understand and having a
Yes.
conversation with somebody that does. Perhaps finding another family, maybe another married couple or a parent, single parent or two parents, and kind of having a conversation. Hey, would you guys be willing to go out on a dinner and just have a quick, have a conversation about our kids, and just, expose yourself to those things. So that way, when your child is ready to come and talk to you, they're going to see the difference. I mean, if it was, for example, perhaps a child that you guys have, where you can say, you know what, they may see this one day and be like, you know what, Mom, I'm ready to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
You need to put yourself in a place where they feel comfortable enough to speak to you. Yeah. Let it be at the dinner table. Let it be perhaps maybe start practicing some things at the dinner table where every time you guys sit down together to eat, you ask a question and be like, hey, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts? Perhaps use the political movement that we're in and how the queer community is standing up against our government to say, hey, how do you feel about that? What are your thoughts on that? And just open the conversation and have it to where they feel just comfortable with you.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing, because the reason why kids don't talk is because they feel like their parents are going to hate them or they're going to judge them, or they're going to even kick them out of the house.
Yeah.
Many children, I think one of my biggest, and I pray every day for it, one of my biggest things, dreams, ambitions that I want is to open up a youth homeless shelter, and not just a homeless shelter, but also a school. There's so many youth within the age of like 12 to 17 that are being kicked out of their homes because they're expressing, who they are, or they're talking to their parents about things that they just may not understand.
That's
I was about to ask you that about, on the parents' side, like if your teenager were to like come out to you, or when a teenager comes out to you, like what would be the best thing for them to do as a parent,
I think as a parent, I think I'm going to go back to the same answer. Have conversations, do mom and child or daddy and child dates, take them out to the ocean and be like, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's go have an ice cream. Let's just don't make it to where it has to be awkward. Just make it like a regular conversation with them, and it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's you can do it.
Okay. I have another question for you. How do I address someone in the LGBTQ plus community without offending them?
So one of the biggest things that we now deal with are pronouns. And so pronouns, he, she, they, them, there's different pronouns, but in general, when we say they in the dictionary, we talk about a group of people, but they can also be used for an individual. You can say, they are beautiful, they are strong, or when you're addressing them, or even talking, because you're going to be talking in from a different point of view, you can use they, them, and they're not going to feel offended.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest step, like, for example, when I'm home, my pronouns are he, him, his. When I'm at camp, I may say he, they, and so, the reason why I may have different pronouns for different spaces in my life is because I understand that there may be people that may not understand that.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's also my part that I have to put in, where I have to give room for a mess up. I have to give room for people that are naive, or for people that are, ignorant to a certain degree, and not spew anger towards them because they don't understand me or they don't know how to address me. Perhaps, if you say he and I have say, respectfully, can you please use they pronouns? Now it's on you to use those pronouns when you address me. It takes some time, and I think grace comes a long way.
Yeah.
And so the same way that grace is bestowed upon our lives in many different platforms and areas in our life, we need to be able to give that back. When an animal, and I say this way, just, when anything is hurt, let it be a person, an animal, or anything, and you touch that wound, they're prone to bite you. They're prone to bite you, not because they don't want you to help them, but because at that moment you're touching something that's hurting them.
Wound, yeah.
Oh, you're touching the wound. So, I think for us, what we need to do is, how can I be available for you so that you can feel that you can open up to me, that I can be there to heal a wound, or that I can be there to assist, and not talk for others. I think sometimes the queer community, why sometimes they're so at times, defensive, is because other people want to talk for us when the ones experiencing what we're going through is ourselves.
Yeah, right? For sure. So for those who are out there and teenagers, let's talk about teenagers.
Or
if
not.
There is a teenager.
It doesn't have to be a teenager.
Or a teenager or young adult.
Yeah, young adult.
Because I feel like it's either a teenager or a young adult.
Or even if you're old. There's some people,
old, yeah.
There are people that come out when they're older age.
Yeah, that's true. If they're afraid to come out, what advice would you give them?
He's laughing.
To love yourself. There's not much. Everybody has a different experience. And sometimes they don't even know how to love themselves. So the job of an ally is to say, here's love. Tell me what I can do to help you experience that. Tell me what I can do to make your experience worthy and valid. I think a lot of people, they deal with feeling worthy, and they deal with feeling valid and feeling that their story matters to others. And that's why I say giving that space of conversation, that space of trust, is super important, and sometimes, it could be days, it could be weeks, it could be years from now, to be honest, and it's just a matter, I had an aunt that told me, ay, yo siempre supe. Oh, really? You did? And she's like, yeah, I saw you once put on your mama's heels. And I took the heels off of you. And I was like, oh, wow, really? She's like, yeah, since you were a kid.
Oh,
I always knew, and I was always corrected. I had a lot of mannerisms when I was a kid. I didn't know how to hold the microphone in church. I would sit.
I know the way to hold it.
Right. I didn't know. But, or sit on my hip or stand on my hip while I'm singing with my two little sisters, because we were like a little trio. And I would also call up my sisters and be like, come on, now, let's go. And I was very like, it's just, I was the showstopper. Yeah. My little sister would come and she would freaking take the whole show over. And she was the cutest little thing ever. But you look at videos and I'm like, yo, y'all were lying to yourself, because these videos say it all. Like, I can tell that I was a queer little kid since I was like 5.
The guys, why'd you say something?
Why did you guys lie to yourself? But when you're raised in that specific environment, in that household, in that home, I now see everything. As a 36-year-old queer, I see it all now. I may not have every answer because I have not experienced everything. But I definitely try to push myself to be able to understand those that I may not have experienced what they have, and really just like I said, give them that space to have a conversation. I think it's the most important thing, man.
I think so too. So, what does the future look like for Neftali Rodriguez?
The future for me. There's so many unanswered questions.
From what you know.
I mean, for you're writing an as a personal letter, a love letter to yourself.
To myself.
Like that's something. Like I'm not writing nothing right now. Like
right. Yeah, I mean, perhaps it would be best said that I'm not physically writing a love letter. It's something that I want to do, but it's my actions in my daily life.
Yeah.
I've traveled more than I've ever traveled in the last 2 years of my life.
That's awesome.
Just trying to put myself in places and heights that can give me a new perspective of life, meet new people. One of the greatest places that I've been to is Costa Rica, and la cultura, the culture, the people, their food, their humbleness, just the way that they take their shirt off when it's probably the last thing they have on. To give it to you.
We've never been. We want to go.
You gotta go. You guys are travelers. I know it. I follow you guys everywhere. You have to go to Costa Rica. You've been to Puerto Rico. It's just the other side of the coast.
Oh,
because they're very similar. I went to Puerto Rico in May, and they can be very similar. The difference between at times the people from Costa Rica and the people from Puerto Rico, it's probably our pride.
Really?
Yeah, it's our pride.
I mean, Puerto Ricans are prideful as shit. I don't know.
Yeah, we're prideful as shit. We're considered Americans.
I think that's it. I think that's it.
That's why
we're the only Caribbean island that's considered American. So we think like,
right.
But American passport, like,
right. I mean, I went to Puerto Rico in May, and you could take me back, and I can buy a house there and live there for the rest of my life. It's so beautiful. And I think having one experience to the other, having one experience to the other, it was amazing, and I think that's, my future is expanding my real estate.
Do you see yourself following the LGBTQ, continuing to be a counselor and advocate like for a long time?
I think I would do that for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
One way or the other. I find purpose in it. And I think it's the most important thing is to find purpose in what you're doing and making change, one soul at a time, one heart at a time, one human at a time, and so, the experiences that I've had and the people that I've touched, even sometimes the people you don't even know that you have made some type of impact or change with, that have come at later times saying, hey, this was you, it just makes you feel like you're doing something right. Sometimes when you're lost in that 9 to 5 or in that hustle, you lose true purpose. Money's not purpose.
Yeah.
Money is not purpose. There's so many people out there hurting. Yes, money will get us what we need. At times, obviously, we need money to move forward. I want to have, a homeless youth shelter and a school and a place for kids, for youth, for LGBTQ plus youth. That's going to take money. That's why I got into real estate. Because I was like, real estate's the only thing that's going to get me my building or going to get me my land, and so, this is kind of like, I've done a lot of advocacy and youth work and LGBTQ work in the community. And now I need to start putting some solid steps forward, and real estate is the financial tool that's going to take me to where I need to go.
Yes.
I'll live off the rest of it, but if I could do it every day and I could be with children and youth every day, I would never come back. You'll never see me.
Oh, we're not gonna see you.
It's where my heart is, though. You know what I mean? It's where I find peace. Next week I go to camp on Friday, and I call it my queer little village because for a whole week we're stuck with these kids 24 hours, and we're listening to them, listening to stories. We're crying with them. We're laughing with them. We're playing with them. There's so many things we do in that week, that I honestly could live there for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
But, knowing that we have a day to day and I still need to make money and I still need to live. So, I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah.
Every moment that I get a chance to make that difference, I'm gonna do it. So
that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here and educating us, because there's a lot of things I didn't know.
Yeah, for sure. Me neither. And
I'm glad.
hopefully somebody out there who either watching live or re-watching it later on or repost it later on, like hopefully you learn something. You know, if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments because we'll text Lewis and we'll make sure to get you the answer. So obviously, I'm pretty sure I don't have the answer for it. But you know, I want to think that, you know, somebody out there kind of got something from what we were talking about today here, and hopefully they can continue to either find more information for themselves or like go to you, ask you questions, you know, if they know you or you know, if they're close to us.
I mean, I'm an open book. I'm an open book, and I'm always open to that. So
and we just want to thank you again for sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience, sharing your passion, because I can, you know, we can see that you're very passionate about this, and that's beautiful, because when you find your passion and your true meaning in life, you know, you go to distance basically. So I'm looking forward to see, you know, what comes out of this conversation and any future endeavors that you decide to do. And again, just thank you for your time being here with us today.
No, thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. It really has been a pleasure to have this conversation. I'm always glad and always open to having a candid conversation, and you know, we really don't know. We just have to talk about it.
Yeah.
As we talk about it, we're gonna get better. You know what I mean?
About it.
The community gets better, the allyship gets better, and things just move forward. You know, we don't have time to move backwards, you know, and so, you know, that's what we have to stand in the gap. I say it all the time. Like, standing in the gap for others is what we're called to do.
Yeah.
And you're not asked to know or to know their experience or feel what they're feeling, but to actually love them is all that you're asked to do.
Right.
And standing in the gap is showing the love.
Well,
I agree.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you drop the like, you drop the comment, and share this information so that way other people can actually learn from this. We're going to be back next week with Keeping It 100. As always, we'll make sure to have a topic for you or a special guest, and we'll let you know who that be. But for right now, I think we're going to call it quits.
Yes.
I want to, again, thank you, Neftali, for being here with us. And to you guys, we'll see you next week. Keeping It 100. Peace.
Happy Pride, guys.